How do you use Mod Organizer to install basic mods? That is the question I'm going to be answering in this video. Now, if you're watching this video and you don't know what Mod Organizer is, or you have not got Mod Organizer installed, I have done two previous videos, one an introduction to Mod Organizer, telling you what the tool is, and the second one showing you how to install it, and you probably should go off and watch those first. What we're going to be doing in this video is looking at the basic mods, the sort of mods that are fairly simple and easy to install normally, and showing you how to install them in various different ways using Mod Organizer. So I've got Mod Organizer installed for Skyrim, and I've got it set up so that it will download mods from Nexus, so that is what we're going to do next. And the mod I have chosen to show you first of all is the Amidian Born Glass Armor mod. This is a standalone mod that changes the texture for the glass armor. You can actually find a mod with this combined into it, but I just want to show you this one mod. It's simple to install, and because it's visual, you can actually see the mod working in action very, very easily. First thing to do, go along to the file section and select which version I want. Now, I'm going to pick the MWV, the Morrowind version, I believe that stands for, which is steel grey and green. I'm going to click Download with Manager, and you'll see a quick flash on Skyrim Mod Organizer indicating it is now downloading the file. And there you go. Now that it is downloading the file, I can show you a few of the other settings. If I go along to the settings option, second tab, Nexus, you will notice now I have a list of servers, premium and free ones. And now I can select which server is my preferred server. So for example, I'm based in Europe. The UK server is probably closer, and this is a premium server. I'm a premium member, therefore I will select this one. I can actually select multiple and put them in any order I want, and what it will do is it will check the preferred servers first. So if you get better download speeds from one server, select that one here, click OK, and then you will hopefully download a little faster. A couple of other settings worth noting at this point are for the user interface in this right panel. You'll notice Amidian Born Glass and basically what is a file name. This is the 7Z archive file name for this mod. It's the file we've downloaded. If I go along to the first tab of settings and select under user interface, download meta information, and then click OK, you'll notice this now says Amidian Born Glass MWV, and then instead of a lot of numbers in a file extension, main, v 1.0. This is indicating this is the main file. It is a main file, not an optional file, but a main file, and it is version 1.0. It's a little more human readable. It's completely up to you if that's what you prefer. You can also select compact download interface, and it will place it on a single line. Now, I actually quite like the less compact version. I think it's a little easier to read, so I'm going to leave it there, but it's completely up to you. One last thing to do before we install this mod is to go into game and check this armor out. We want to see what the armor looks like, otherwise how will we know if the mod has been successfully installed? And we're going to do this by clicking the Run button. This will run whatever I have selected here. I have Skyrim selected. I click Run, and it will run Skyrim for me. And here we are in the vanilla game, completely unmodded. The vanilla game with all the DLC and nothing else. And here is the glass armor. As you can see, it's a very sort of pale yellow brown with very, very pale green bits on the outside. That is going to be changed quite dramatically. So that's what we're looking for. When you get back to your desktop, you will probably find Skyrim Mod Organizer has closed. That is the default behavior when running Skyrim. I don't actually want it to do that because I will be playing around, going into Skyrim and checking out my mods quite a lot, and I want to come back and find Mod Organizer still here. And you can do that fairly simply by either on this drop-down menu, selecting Edit, or selecting this button on the toolbar. It has the same effect. It opens up the Modify Executables window. Mod Organizer has detected 3 executables for me: Skyrim, Skyrim Launcher, and Creation Kit. And if I select Skyrim, you will notice it closes MO when started. Same for Skyrim Launcher, and not for the Creation Kit. The Creation Kit leaves Mod Organizer open. So I'm going to select Skyrim and deselect this. I want Skyrim to launch and leave Mod Organizer open. That's just me. You might not want that to happen. You might want it to go away. And then I click Modify, and it has now modified the Skyrim selection. If I go to the Skyrim Launcher, it still closes MO. There you go. So now I've got it set up to not close when I run my game. So here we go. Go to the Downloads tab and either double click on this file or single right click and select Install from the context menu. Again, it's the same thing. And you will get the Quick Install pop-up menu. Now you have 3 choices at this point. You can either cancel, you can click OK and do a quick install, or you can click Manual and do a manual installation. The quick installation is something I do not recommend unless you know the mod you are installing very well. If you know its file structure and you know it can be quick installed. And if you do, you can change the name here if you want. It's up to you. If you are even slightly unsure about the mod, click Manual. I recommend doing this for just about every mod. I always do so. Manual. Looks good. This is what I'm being told straight away. This is what you're looking for. Looks good. But take your time, have a look at it, rename it if you want, and look at the content. As you can see here, this top thing says data. This is Mod Organizer's virtual data folder. Underneath here are all the files it has found in this archive. So the archive I've downloaded has one single folder, and that folder is called Textures. I can open that up. It has a folder called Armor, and I can keep opening it up. Female, male, and shield. Now, you can actually, if you want, I'm going to close these a little so you can see the whole thing. You could actually say, well, I want the armors, but I don't want the shield. And now it will only install the actual armor textures, not the shield textures, if you want. And then perhaps you could write something in here like, no shield, if you want it. It's completely to you. I'm going to put it back, and I'm going to reselect absolutely everything. Because as far as I'm concerned, I want all of the files from the mod. It's completely up to you, but as you can see, you've got a lot more control over what gets installed. If you are not sure about what all of these files do, I would recommend not changing them. If the mod comes here and it has a file structure that looks fine, you know, textures, meshes, perhaps ESPs, and specifically says looks good, you're ready. You can click OK, and it will build the mod. The mod has now been built. Version 1.0 was installed on the 31st of the 7th, 2014 at 17:37, and is in 6th priority, loaded last. It has no flags. It is not overwriting anything in any of these mods as far as we know. It is not activated currently. If I started my game, the armor would still be the vanilla version. I'm going to select this, and that is it. It's activated. But deactivate it. Now I'm back to vanilla. Activate, and we're in business. If I go to plugins, there are no new plugins, so I don't need to worry about that. So let's go and see this armor in action. Let's click Run. And there we are. The armor is now more grey. The metal parts are more grey, and the green parts are definitely a lot more green. It's a lot higher definition texture as well. A lot nicer looking. This particular mod is part of a large armor pack, and I highly recommend it. brilliant retextures, really, really nice. The whole lot of them, they look really nice. But as you can see, our mod is working just fine. However, at this point, I'd like to point out a few things that experienced modders might find a little surprising. I know I mentioned it before, but if we go to the Skyrim data folder, you'll notice there's no texture folder. No files have been added to this folder by this mod. Doesn't matter whether I activate it or deactivate it. There are no texture files in your Skyrim data. And in fact, if I run the game from here, as in not from Mod Organizer, but directly, if I use the old link and go into game, watch what happens when I load my save. There you go. Back to the vanilla texture. Even though I've installed the mod using Mod Organizer, if I run my game the normal way, it just runs the vanilla game. This is the vanilla game. Now, as you can imagine, there is a pro and a con to that. The pro is, at any time, you can literally check out the vanilla game by running the game normally. You just run it normally and you will get the vanilla game, and you can, check out something, whatever you need to do. However, the downside to that is if you forget to, open up Mod Organizer and run the game through that, you will get the vanilla game and you'll have to restart, which can be annoying. However, there is a way around this. If you are like me and you have a shortcut set up on your desktop to go straight into the game or SKSE, you're probably going to get very annoyed very quickly if each time you want to play the game, you have to open up Skyrim Mod Organizer and click Run. Don't worry, Mod Organizer will set up a shortcut for you that will go straight into the game, but with Mod Organizer running. And it's pretty easy. Before I do that, I'm going to double click here. And for those of you who are curious, I am using a desktop program called Fences, which allows me to hide a lot of the icons, and it makes my desktop a little neater for these tutorials. To add the shortcut, I have to make sure Skyrim is selected in my executable because it's the vanilla game. The same is going to be true if you've got SKSE installed. I will show you that later on, but for now, because I'm playing without SKSE, I'm going to select Skyrim, shortcut, and desktop. And it will place a shortcut on my desktop. The icon is the Mod Organizer icon, but the name is Skyrim. If I hide, I have to exclude this icon from Fences, then hide those just for neatness sake. I can now close down Mod Organizer. Close it completely, it is gone, and start Skyrim this way. It will start up the game, and as you can see, the mod is installed. So, all the convenience of just going straight to the game, but with the mod installed. You can, of course, install mods from anywhere, not just Nexus. You don't need to use the integration with Nexus Mod Manager, the download with manager links, such as this. You can install a mod that has been downloaded from other sites, or a mod you have packaged yourself, or if perhaps you have downloaded the mod from Nexus to your disk, straight to the disk, and not with Mod Organizer. So, for example, if I want to use the Medium-Born Glass Thalmarized, I could, alternatively, download manually. Once the mod is finished downloading, you can add it to Mod Organizer either by right-clicking on an empty area in the left panel and clicking Install Mod, or simply clicking this icon. It's a shortcut to the same feature. Choose the location of the mod. As you can see, I've placed mine on my desktop. So it is the Medium-Born Glass Thalmarized. I'm going to open this, and I'm going to leave the name as Medium-Born Glass Thalmarized. I'm going to do the manual check, looks good, and then click OK. And in this particular case, since it's the same armor, I'm going to disable this and enable this. So I've quickly switched between the different glass armor retextures. And there you go. the alternative version of this texture has been installed and is running. Oh, and if you do install a mod from Nexus in this manner, you will notice that it seems to keep the Nexus ID. That is because it has pulled it from the file name from the download. However, the version is not quite correct. And if you go along and double click, you can actually go along and manually change the version, and that might actually be a good idea if you've done it this way and you want Nexus Mod Manager to keep track. So I'll change that to 1.0, which is the correct version. And as you can see, they now match, and I get rid of that little icon. Otherwise, what you get is the date that you added the mod rather than the version. Now, so far, all we've been doing is installing mods that were packaged in a manner that Mod Organizer recognizes or accepts as being valid. But what exactly does that mean? Well, if we quickly look at the file we just downloaded, the Amidian-born glass retexture, and I double click on it, you can see inside here is a single folder, textures. And essentially what is happening here, if you install this mod normally, you would copy these textures from here, from this archive, into your data folder, and that mod would be installed. And so this is this is set up in a manner that Mod Organizer recognizes. And to illustrate the point further, I've set up a dummy mod in this folder, and if I was to package a mod in a manner that Mod Organizer would recognize, it would look something like this. It has meshes folder, it has scripts, textures perhaps, and it has an ESP. This is the typical type of structure. It might have a README file, it might have a folder for SKSE plugins. These are all things you would find in the data folder. And if everything in here can be copied directly across to the data folders for Skyrim, it is packaged in a manner that Mod Organizer is used to. And this structure is fairly typical of the way mod authors will package their mods. However, there is another way that is also pretty common, and that is for the mod author to actually add a folder called data and to basically have everything contained in there. So inside his archive, there will actually be a data folder, and inside there you will find the files. And then the instructions are either copy everything in the archives data folder to the Skyrim data folder, or copy the entire archive contents to your Skyrim game folder. That's also an alternative instruction. Now, Mod Organizer is a little wary of this packaging. Nexus Mod Manager handles this automatically. It just assumes if there's a folder called data, it just assumes that's where it needs to start. Mod Organizer is a little more careful and says, are you sure? And I'll show you that in action. And to illustrate this, I'm going to use the BGM Glass and Elven Armor and Weapons mod for two reasons. One, it is a personal favorite of mine. I've always liked this mod. And secondly, it is packaged in the manner I've just described. If I look at the file, I'll double click on the file, you can see it has a data folder included, and inside data, that is where you'll find textures. So I'm going to install that. I'm going to install it the usual way though. I'm going to download with Manager and let Skyrim Mod Organizer do its thing. It looks like it's going to take a few seconds. So the file has downloaded. Before I install it, I'm just going to disable this mod. There's no point having two mods that replace the exact same files. And then I'm going to double click to install. And again, choose manual. Now this time you'll notice it actually says no game data on top level. And if I expand there you can see the textures folder is included in a data folder. Now fixing this is absolutely trivial. Just go along to whichever folder you believe is supposed to be the game's data folder, right click on it and set data directory. You're just telling Mod Organizer, yes, this folder here, this one is where the one that corresponds to the data folder in the Skyrim game folder. Set data directory, and you'll notice the structure then changes, and I now have the textures directly here. It is now packaged correctly. I have a looks good message, and I click OK and carry on as I did for the previous mods. Simply activate it here, and the mod should now work. Now, you may actually be wondering what this icon is. Basically, it's telling me that the version I have installed here is actually newer than the one on Nexus. So basically the newest version, according to Nexus, is actually older than this one. This is version 3.0, and that is simply a mistake in the way the mod author has versioned his file. He's actually called this version 3, but whatever he's done on the settings page is he set the latest version as final. Now, sometimes people do that just to let you know they're not going to upgrade it anymore, but it does have a nasty side effect in kind of breaking Mod Organizer and Nexus Mod Manager because they start wondering what on earth is going on. But realistically, you can actually just ignore that. It's a good idea to check the website and see just in case, but in this case, I'm going to ignore it. And of course, quickly check in game to make sure the mod has been installed correctly. And there you go. One quick clarification about Mod Organizer and the way it likes mods to be packaged. I did say that it didn't like it when mods came packaged inside their own data folder already, and it doesn't. It's a little nervous, and that Nexus Mod Manager handles it automatically. Well, Mod Organizer handles it automatically as well if you select OK and go for the quick install. It actually installs the files exactly as you would expect. If you check the data folder that it creates, those textures are there. It actually does it without any problem if you're doing the quick install. However, although that does work, I still always recommend with Mod Organizer doing a manual installation, checking to see, and if it has detected a data folder, just setting that as the data directory. It's just a little neater and a little safer if you do this each time. Now, sometimes a mod is packaged in a manner that is even more complicated than that, and to show you what I mean, I'm going to go along to my badly packaged mod folder. Now, I'm going to reiterate, just because I'm calling it badly packaged mod does not actually mean those mods are bad, and mod authors are under no obligation to package their mods in a way that Mod Organizer or Nexus Mod Manager recognize. They usually give you README instructions on how to install it. Most mods nowadays are pretty simple anyway, and if they're not, they have the sort of installer windows, which I will show you in a little while, but occasionally you will find a mod that is a bit more complicated, such as this one. It has a data folder and it has a README text, but under data, it also has something called optional. And what I've done is I've made this mod as if, it's not a real mod, it's a dummy mod before anyone asks, as if you have my mod ESP, texture scripts and meshes, but there are also two optional ESPs that if you want, you're supposed to copy out of there into your data folder and select them. Obviously, this is a little more complicated than the standard mods. And just to show you what Mod Organizer will make of that, I'm going to archive this up. I'm going to select the data and the README and add it to my badly packaged mod. As a RAR archive, I'm going to then exclude that from fences so we can still see it. And this file is now packaged in a way that I can load it using Mod Organizer. However, when I do, it will say no game data on top level. Now, of course, as I've already shown you, you can set this as the data directory, but of course you're going to lose the README. Maybe you don't want to lose the README. Maybe you actually wanted to keep the README. You can just left click on this and drag it into data. And as you see now, it's moved the README into the data folder. This will actually copy the README into this folder. I can also go along to the optional files and say, all right, I want optional file B. So I'm going to put that up in data because I want my mod.esp and my optional file B, but I don't want A. So I'm going to deselect that. In fact, you don't even need the optional folder at all. So I'm going to deselect that. I'm then, when I've finally constructed my data folder, I'm going to right-click on data, set data directory, and it looks good. And as you can see, these two remain deselected. I'm going to give it a good name, my nicely packaged mod, and then I'm going to click OK. And if I go along, have a look at it and look at the file tree, it shows the files that I've installed. Now, the reason there are no textures, meshes, or scripts are because I didn't actually add any files to those folders. They were empty folders, just to give you an idea. But you get the idea. These are the files that were copied, including the README text, and will theoretically be there in the virtual data folder. I should also point out that if you do get mods with optional files, you don't need to actually decide which of those files you want when you install the mod this way. If I do that again and do my badly packaged mod, and once again, in fact, this time I'm going to say I don't need the README. I'm going to say I don't need the README, and I'm going to take the two optional files, both of them. Even though I don't need A, I'm going to move both of them, and I'm going to deselect optional. So I'm not having the README, I'm not having optional, I'm going to set data directory. I now have all of the ESPs. I'm going to my nicely packaged mod once more, click OK, let it do its thing. And when I activate it, if I now look at my plugins, I have my mod, my optional file A and B, which I can obviously just move around in case I don't want them. But I've already decided I don't want A. Now, there is one way to do this. Obviously, I can just deselect it. It's no longer in my load order, but I hate that. I hate this sort of mess. Don't worry. Double click here and go along to optional ESPs and move my optional file A to the optional ESPs. And what this is saying is, well, I've got this ESP, I don't want to use it. And in fact, you can actually do this for the B as well if you didn't want to use that. Click close. And now you'll notice I only have my mod ESP and my optional file ESP. This is probably a much better way of doing it because, of course, you then have the option to change your mind later on. And that is it for this video, but I have not exhausted the topic of installation of mods by any measure. I am going to be covering the installation of faux mod installers, SKSE and SkyUI in part 4 of this series, and later on I will be covering installation of more complex mods such as SkyRe and the Reprocker and Finis and so on. So don't worry, I will be covering installations of those mods separately. But for the next episode, for part 3, I'm going to be covering updating and merging your mods. You guys are of course more than welcome to join me for that video or any of the other videos that I create, and I look forward to seeing you there. But until then, remember, as always, have fun.